We are recording, good sir.
Awesome. Well, first off, welcome everybody.
A little louder.
Great to have such a good turnout here today. This is Sword and Board. So, I'm going to introduce myself. For those that don't know me, Sir Blade Master Aradin. Been fighting for about 16 years at this point. Yeah, we're going to go over a couple different things in this class. This is going to be starting kind of at the basics of some of this stuff you guys may have already heard or may have touched on in the past at practice, but just going to kind of re-emphasize some of that stuff, go over some different types of techniques, and then we'll kind of break off and do some drills and stuff. But first thing that I like to start with when it comes to Sword and Board is everybody likes to normally come out and go, cool, what kind of cool attacks can I throw? If I do a spin shot, what can I do with that? You can never get to that level without getting your basics mastered. So you have to kind of like start over and figure out all the other stuff before you even worry about doing the cool stuff. So the first thing that I like to start with is analyzing your opponent. This may not seem like a Sword and Board specific thing, but when your opponent walks up to you, the first thing that you should do is figure out what they're using. Are they big? Are they small? Are they tall or short? Are they left-handed? That is a huge one. If you walk up to somebody and you don't know that they're left-handed, you're probably going to get smoked because that's what happens. What weapon type are they using? Are they using a short sword? What kind of shield are they using? Are they using a punch shield, a strap shield? Can you even tell? Is it a dome? Because all of those things change how you fight your opponent. If you're going up to every opponent with a sword and shield or whatever you want to use, and you're fighting them the exact same way, that's not effective. That's essentially rolling the dice and going, well, I hope I'm a little bit faster. I hope that they swing out of order and I tag them. When you start with analyzing, you can really start to gather a lot of information that's going to let you set up how you want to fight them and be in charge of the fight. Like, that's the goal. Like, coming into a fight prepared, that's the biggest thing that you can do that will set you up to win. So as far as setup goes, I probably went over this. Everybody's kind of got their own little method of setup. I like to teach kind of like an A-frame, so I'm going to demonstrate that here. And it's going to differ a little bit depending on what type of shield that you have. So if I had a punch shield, I'm probably going to do this a little bit differently. For this purpose, dome or a strap shield, I teach A-frame. Your belt line is going to be that cross on the A. You're going to think of the top almost like a triangle, almost like your butt. So if you really took this out of the equation, my setup is very much like this. Now the goal of that is to do two things. Your shield is going to block your shield side. You're not going to be doing stuff like this to block anything over here. You don't want to do this. If Bulwark comes up and he throws a fake over here and I do this to block it, guess what? I'm dead. If Bulwark does that again, and I trust this guard to block over here and I keep this here, I'm safe, right? So that's number one. A-frame setup. Keep your shield up high. You want to guard this shoulder with your shield. That's going to be the main purpose and kind of in front of your body. This sword also plays a very vital role in Sword and Board. This is your other shield, right? If you're not actively using this to guard, again, we don't want to do this. We don't want to move this out of the way that it's going to, or excuse me, we don't want to move this out of the lane that it is set up to block. So, use your hand to block stuff on your sword side. You don't want to go way over here, but use your hand to block that. Use your shield, kind of leave it in place to absorb the other stuff. And who knows what you do to block your feet?
Move your feet.
Move your feet, that's right. This never does this. That is yum yum eat 'em up for anybody that's good with Sword and Board. If Bulwark comes up to me and pump fakes in my legs and I do this, oh man, I'm dead. Does that all make sense? So that's the setup. That's kind of how you want to think about whenever you go up to your opponent, you're analyzing, and you're going to make sure that you're set up with your guard to where you're going to be the most effective. That's what you should do before you ever throw a shot, before you ever even think about doing that. Analyze, set up. Now, when it comes to, oh no, wind. When it comes to feints, who knows what the purpose of a feint is to do? To fake them out, to open them up. Essentially what a feint is me trying to get my opponent to think I'm going to hit somewhere that I'm not, so that they open up the area that I want. So a feint would be a pump fake here and a return to here. It could be a sail to a stab. All of that is just a hand fake. Now, there are multiple aspects of feints beyond your hand. This is actually the worst way to set up fakes, is if you just walk up and do that. You have to be able to set it up on multiple levels. The one thing that I like to tell people is your feet are going to be your biggest selling point when it comes to Sword and Board. So what I mean by that is, my little handy dandy notes away, crumple them up where I can't read them. So, if I'm here.
A little louder.
So if I'm here and my feint is going to be my setup to lead into it, I'm going to come in. If I just do this, very easy to read. Now I want you to watch something. If I do this, I've completely changed the angle that I'm about to fight at, right? I'm no longer just using my hand to set up a feint. I've moved my body, I've changed my angle. You want to combine a little bit of everything. You want to combine your feet, you want to combine your hand movements, and you want to combine level changes. So what that's going to look like in the end, a normal feint, good feint, kind of like that. Don't mess with my hair. But you're using your feet to kind of fool your opponent. Shields will generally follow bodies. That's one of the things I love to tell people in sword and board is if I step here, generally speaking, all of his body is going to come with me to a degree. It may not completely shift 100%, but if I go here, a lot of times they do that. If you know that kind of information, it sets up new shots. It opens up new feints for you to be able to throw. So you want to combine your footwork, your level changes, and your feints to come up with your shots. So if you're just kind of running up and just throwing a feint and a shot, that's not going to be the most effective. It will kill average, maybe even better than average fighters. When you get to the higher tier of it, you've got to combine all of those elements because they're moving their feet, or at least they should be, when you're moving yours. So if I go here, he's going to meet me. If you're not moving your feet, you might die. You've got to combine footwork with your feints and stuff. Does that all make sense? Kind of like how to set those up. In other words, don't just throw your shot, incorporate your body, move around them, use your hand fake, and then finish. Does anybody know what a level change is? Who can tell me what a level change is?
Bend your knees.
Yeah, bending at your knees, shifting it up. So the purpose of that is because foam fighting is not a two-dimensional thing, right? And what I mean by that is fighting is never just in and out. It's high and low. It's depth. There's a difference between a shallow shot that's just kind of hitting right here and a deep shot. One of them is safer. One of them is more risky. There's reasons to throw both of them. But you kind of have to understand those aspects of sword fighting to really be able to kind of strive in itself. So, going off of that, got a couple more points here. Range control. A lot of people pick up whatever sword they want and they go, oh, I'm using a 32, I'm using a 34, using 36. They don't know why that makes a difference. Knowing the best range that you fight at with your sword and where you're going to engage your opponent is a very vital aspect of sword and board. So if you're using a 32-inch sword, what does that mean? Well, if I'm using a 32, I have to fight differently than if I used a 36. 36, I'm going to fight more back. I've got more range. I don't want to, if I fight him with a 36-inch sword and I engage him every time here, that's a waste of weapon. I don't need that much. If usually Wharf uses a 32, I believe. Don't use a 32-inch sword. So I know that since he's got a shorter sword, he's going to probably be more aggressive in his attack on me. So you need to know how you want to fight and pick your weapon that's going to match that. Don't just pick up what you see somebody else use. Don't just pick up, what you think is going to be the best. Try different lengths, 32, 33, 34, 35, whatever. If that's what you want to use, cater your fighting to it and understand where the strengths and the weaknesses are going to be. With a 36, I'm going to be much more of a range fighter. I'm not trying to really close a ton of distance on him. And if I do, it's usually just enough to hit just the end of my sword. If every time I throw a shot on somebody with a sword shield, if I hit them here, I'm just wasting so much range. I don't need that much. So either I need to adjust my feet and I need to just throw it from a little bit further back, or I need to switch what weapon I'm using and use one that's more programmed to where I want to engage. Does that make sense? Last but not least, the thing that everybody loves.
Can I shoot a question there?
Yeah.
I use a 34. Would you say a 34 is like a happy medium between 32 and 36?
I think used to 32, 34 was the norm. Now I think it's kind of shifted as weapons have gotten lighter. I think it's more the 34, 36 range. nothing wrong with anything shorter than that. I would say 34 is a pretty good happy medium. If you want range and aggression, that's a pretty good one. I actually use a 35 in most cases just to kind of cover both. But
Elves.
yeah, elves. We make things so much more complicated. But shots. So 30. Old Papa Brian told me 35 is an option. So I'm going to show this last part, and this is, I'm not going to teach any specific shots because I don't think that is super valuable. I more or less want to show you how I think about setting up sword and board, right? So we're going to split these people in middle. So you got one lane here and here. This is your outside lane. Generally, this is how I explain it. People may do it a little differently. This is my outside lane. This is going to be inside. Anything inside of that hand, inside, right? Split down the middle. You've got a little lane here. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Why do I set all that up? Because that's how you're going to train your body to throw shots. Because those are generally where you want to hit people. Shoulders, arms, hips. Same thing over here. Shoulder, arm, hip. Right? We're not really focusing on their legs. Legs are always available for you to hit. You don't need to set up a shot to throw a leg shot. If you want to see if you can hit somebody in the legs, literally walk at them like this and do that. You're going to die, but you will hit them in the leg. So with that setup, I teach people when you develop what kind of shots you want to throw. We talked about feints earlier. Let's incorporate that into how we fight. So me and Bulwark are set up. Let's say I want to tag this shoulder. Best concept to understand how to open people up with feints, I've got to get all of this out of the way of where I want to hit, right? Footwork, feints, movement, that's how we do that. Just like we talked about those things earlier, we're going to incorporate those into how we fight. So let's say this is the shot. I want to hit him in the shoulder. I've got to get everything moved over. How am I going to do that? Well, I'm going to throw a pump fake and I'm going to step left to start. So my body's moving, shields follow bodies, right? So if I step and I throw that, look where he's at. What do? He met my body. You go for that body shot on that one. Same concept if you did the other direction. Let's go here. It's all about where I move my feet, where he reacts to, and if you need to adjust, you can adjust. If I step over here, and let's say Bulwark is like, nope, you're not doing that. I don't want to throw this when I'm this close to him. I really have to be here to get it. If he's absorbing that, that's fine. You stop. Okay, did he move? Not really. Is this open? Is this worth me throwing? Am I going to die from that? Maybe. Just step out. If you're ever in a position with sword and board where you think, you know what, might die from this, just back up. That's the easiest thing. If somebody's doing stuff like this, just literally take one step back. Let them do whatever craziness they're going to do, and then re-engage. So again, to get that open, you've got to move this. So use your body, your feet, your level changes to open up those shots. Don't just do it like this. This is not how you throw feints. The difference in that and that are completely different. I'm way over here by the time I hit. So does that all make sense? There's one other thing I think talk about. I don't want to. I think it's for everyone. Yeah. Is there any questions about how you currently fight that you're struggling with that you can identify that maybe we can talk about right now and fix it? Anybody like, oh, I'm struggling a lot versus big shields. I feel like I can't wrap shot people. I feel like I keep hitting the body like real easily. Anything like that? For anybody.
What do you do against big shields with corners?
Big shields with corners. Cool. So
Like
that's a great
heaters.
question.
I have a heater.
Game
Grab it.
breaker? Thank you.
It's allowed.
This goes to the first part where we talked about analyzing, right? Corners usually means that shoulders are harder to get. But when we cut off one thing, we usually open up something else, right? For the most part, when you have heater shields like that with corners there, I don't really go for their shoulders, right? Because they turn it kind of like how Burbs has got it right now, where it's kind of cracked to the side. If I go for his shoulder, I'm just asking to get my arm taken, right? Look at how pronounced that is. So this is not a good option for me. I analyze, I go, cool, he's got a heater. But look at how it's angled, right? This means these arms are easier to hit. This also means that his hips are easier to hit. So don't necessarily think of it like, oh, it's such a big change in how I fight, but think about you're just analyzing and making your fight based off of what he's using and kind of adapting to his fight style. So against that, I would honestly work this side a lot. I've had a lot of good results when I would come in and just kind of like left side step, bring them over, and go for that arm. That's the easiest way to fight. You just adjust. It's the same as a circle shield. It's just the weaknesses are a little different. Usually circle shields, like if Blake came over here, just in comparison, I like throwing shoulder shots against rounds because there's this little gray area right in here where sometimes you can just power right through it and hit them. I don't like throwing arm shots with rounds because look how far out, like if they turn around, look at that elbow. That elbow is so far away from there. If I throw a rat, even on a great day, it's hard for me to get that. But look, see how much easier that is? You just adjust based on what you're fighting. So if you're not going up to your fights, figuring out what your opponent's doing, and you're just kind of, hey, I'm going to fight them the same way, you're just setting yourself up to have a harder fight. Not that you can't beat it, it's just harder. Does that make sense? Any other questions on anything that people are working on or have questions about sword and board or anything like that?
Good job, Aradin.
All right, cool. Awesome.
Thank you.
Guys.
Thank you.